I'm with you, Steve. Yeah? All right, thank you.
Same sound as the blood in your body as it moves across your bones. But are you listening? Are you listening? Yes, are you listening? Are you listening? Can you join me? Put your feet back on the ground. You can hear what you say if you listen. Put your roots down, put your feet on the ground. You can hear what you say if you listen. Cause the sound of the river as it moves across the stones is the same sound as the blood in your body as it moves across your bones. But are you listening? Ooh, are you listening? Ooh, yes, are you listening? Ooh, are you listening?
Are you listening? Conference of the Parties. We are here to mark the opening today in Dubai of the 28th Conference of the Parties, COP28, a critical platform for deliberations and collaborations aimed at addressing the pressing challenges of climate change. Sadly, many of us here have completely lost faith and feel that COP28 is likely to be yet another greenwashing exercise full of words and empty promises. At COP26, the Glasgow Climate Pact resolved to pursue efforts to limit the temperature increase to 1.5 degrees centigrade. But right now, we are way off course, and the window is rapidly closing. Earlier this month, a report from the United Nations Climate Change found national climate action plans remain insufficient to limit global temperature rise to 1.5 degrees and meet the goals of the Paris Agreement. And in April, Antonio Guterres, Secretary General for the United Nations, said, "Today's policies would make our world 2.8 degrees hotter by the end of the century, and that is a death sentence." At COP27, a breakthrough agreement was finally reached to set up a fund to provide loss and damage funding for vulnerable countries hit hard by climate disasters, communities whose lives and livelihoods have been ruined by the very worst impacts of climate change. Countries predominantly in the global south, countries with the lowest carbon dioxide emissions that have done least to cause this crisis. But as yet, this loss and damage fund doesn't exist. Earlier this month, governments met in Abu Dhabi and drew up a blueprint for how the fund will be administered. However, campaigners say the agreement is not enough to guarantee the funds needed for vulnerable countries, which is likely to reach trillions of dollars by the end of this decade. Harriet Singh at Climate Action Network International said, "It is a somber day for climate justice as rich countries turn their backs on vulnerable communities. This falls short of providing vulnerable communities with adequate assurance that their financial needs for coping with climate impacts and rebuilding their lives will be met." The fact that COP28 is being held in the United Arab Emirates does not inspire confidence for this year either. The UAE is one of the top 10 oil-producing nations, and Sultan Al Jaber, the president of COP28, is chief executive of the state-owned oil company Abu Dhabi National Oil Company, ADNOC. Fossil fuels like oil are the main cause of climate change, yet Sultan Al Jaber's company plans to expand production capacity. Can we trust him to lead this COP towards the actions we need to avert climate disaster? No. On Monday, our worst fears were confirmed when Justin Rolat, climate editor for the BBC, broke the news that independent journalists for the Centre for Climate Reporting, working alongside the BBC, had obtained leaked briefing documents revealing that the UAE was, I quote, planning to use its role as the host of UN climate talks as an opportunity to strike oil and gas deals. UAE's COP 2018 were planning to discuss working with China to evaluate opportunities for mining liquefied natural gas in Mozambique, Canada and Australia, working with other countries including Colombia, Germany and Egypt to develop fossil fuel projects, and to get the Brazilian Environment Minister to support ADNOC's bid to buy a key stake in Latin America's largest oil and gas processing company. Professor Michael Jacobs of Sheffield University said, "The UAE at the moment is custodian of a United Nations process aimed at reducing global emissions, and yet in the very same meetings where it is apparently trying to pursue that goal, it is actually trying to do side deals which will increase global emissions." It would be very easy to give in to despair, but we feel we cannot afford just to give up. We have to continue to demand better from our leaders for the sake of all life on Earth, and in particular for future generations that will have to live with the consequences of the decisions our leaders make today. As climate scientist Joel Jurges says, averting planetary disaster is up to the people alive right now. The 2020s will be remembered as the decade that determined the future of humanity. And that is why we're here today, asking world leaders and all those attending the COP in Dubai to put aside personal ambitions and greed and put people and the planet ahead of financial interests. We are asking them to feel the eyes of the world and the hand of history upon them. Executive Secretary of United Nations Climate Change, Simon Steele, says, COP28 must be a clear turning point. Governments must not only agree what stronger climate actions will be taken, but also start showing exactly how to deliver them. And WWF's Global Climate and Energy lead scientist Stephanie Rowe says, the sooner and more decisively we act, the sooner people and nature can reap the benefits of a cleaner, safer, and more stable future. We have all the tools we need, so it's well within our power to meet this challenge if we act now. In the words of Antonio Guterres, now must be the time for ambition and action. The world is watching, and the planet cannot wait.